Vernon, your mic's on mute. Vernon, your mic's on mute. No one can hear you speaking at the moment.
Hey, Vernon, do you know that you're muted?
I'm muted, folks. Thank you guys for telling me, right? Can you guys hear me now?
So do you know how to find the chat? Several people were chatting, and that's how I knew.
Okay, all right. Looks like everybody's saying they can hear me now. If you can hear me, go ahead and type 1. If you can hear me in the chat, type 1. All right, very good. All right, very good. Well, let's go ahead and let's go back real quick, folks, right? Want to make sure that you guys get everything that we are wanting for you to get here as a part of this presentation. All right. Okay. So you're probably saying, who is Vernon Wright, right? Let's go ahead and do this real quick. Again, honored to be here with you today as part of Global EdTech Academy between Microsoft and Q. Of course, you see me there, Vernon Wright, leader, speaker, editor, entrepreneur, and founder. Of course, as well, the 5 R's. You're probably saying, hey, Vernon, I came for the 5 R's, right? What is that about? Real, relevant, rigorous, reflective, and refined. Thank you guys for being here with us today. So who is Vernon Wright? This is the slide that we were on just a few moments ago. Founder of ZeroApologyZone.com, entrepreneur, speaker, leader, editor, consultant, mastermind, mentor. I started out my career many moons ago as a classroom teacher, have been privileged and honored and humbled to have served in a variety of roles, both at the campus level and also too at the district level. All right. Thank you guys again for telling me about my sound, because that's important, right? Not just the video, but also too the audio. Okay. All right. So again, hello and welcome. My name is Vernon Wright, of course, on Twitter at @the Wright Leader. Some of you may know that. As we share and exchange ideas, be sure to go ahead and follow me on Twitter. Of course, when you're using the hashtags, you see the hashtags down there, make sure that you go ahead and tag those and use those hashtags so we can all be a part of the collaborative conversation. Okay, so you might be wondering, Vernon, what are some of the favorite Microsoft apps that you use? So I just want to do that and share that with you before we get into things. There are some of the apps that I use, Microsoft apps, of course, Word, Excel. I think that Alice Keeler is here on the call. She is the Excel expert. PowerPoint, which of course I'm sharing with you all today. OneDrive, Outlook, of course, for email, calendar invites and such. Teams, which of course we are sharing with you guys here today through that platform. And Microsoft To Do. I am wondering, and I'm betting that there's some of you that did not even know that this app existed, Microsoft To Do. Secret little app there for Microsoft. Great tool for you to go ahead and have, and we'll keep you up to date, especially if you're a person that likes checklists and has Post-it notes all over your house, right? So Microsoft To Do there. Here's one that I bet you did not know was a part of Microsoft is MileIQ. So if you're a consultant and do some consultant work like I do, you might be a person that tracks your mileage. So MileIQ, something for you to go ahead and look at if you're an education consultant. All right. So what about the 5 R's? Real, relevant, rigorous, reflective, refined, right? Because that's what we came here to talk about was the 5 R's. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and let's talk about a driving question. So let's look at a driving question here. Driving question. How can we use innovation and empowerment in our roles to advance student achievement? How can we do that? How can we use innovation and empowerment in our roles to advance student achievement? All right. So I want to go ahead and talk to you all and share with you all three high impact levers for teaching and leadership. Okay. All right. Are you guys ready? I hope you're ready, right? 3 high impact levers for teaching and leadership. You can't say that I didn't warn you that you needed something to take notes with, right? Either low tech or high tech. All right, so number 1, let's get into it, competence. You don't have to know everything, but we do have to know some things. Demonstrating competence is a big thing, all right? We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a little bit. Number 2, communication. People talk about communication a lot. What are all of the ways that you communicate with people, not only in your professional life, but in your personal life? And what are some different approaches and some different things to consider? We're going to talk about that. Certainly that plays a part of instruction. And number 3, connection. Let me go ahead and tell you something, folks. Just to be real with you here on this webinar, you can be competent, you can be absolutely skilled. You can be great at various modes of communication, but if you do not have that human connection with individuals, number 1 and number 2 just don't work the way that they should. All right. So 3 high impact levers for teaching and leadership. Now, I'm going to go ahead and give you a twist. And so if you've heard me speak before, you know that sometimes I come at things from a different angle that maybe is a little unorthodox, but we're going to go with it. So the same 3 high impact levers, but with a twist. Some of you may have heard of this person in history, this historical figure named Aristotle. He had the 3 elements of persuasion. Number 1, ethos. You might be familiar with that. Number 2, logos. And number 3, pathos. All right. Ethos, logos, pathos. The same 3 high impact levers, but with the twist. Ethos. What's your credibility? What do you bring to the table, right? Number 2, logos. What does the data say? What's the analytical side? Show us the numbers, right? And number 3, pathos, what is our ability to connect with other people in a way that's deeply emotional? Because when we're able to connect in a way that's deeply emotional in a profoundly positive way, that inspires people. I don't want to get too ahead of myself. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a little bit. All right. So the same 3 high impact levers, but with the twist. All right. So big question, right? Of course, you guys know as educational experts, no true authentic instruction or sharing and exchanging of ideas is truly authentic without periodic questions and points of reflection. So let's go ahead and do that right now. What does real mean within the context of our learning today? What does real mean? Well, let's take a look at it. So the power of authenticity. And let me just go ahead and tell you this, folks. Being real and being authentic, right? I want to tell you what this really means. What this really means is we're creating spaces where people are at ease. They're at ease in terms of sharing their fears. They're at ease in terms of sharing their dreams, their hopes, their desires, their inspirations. I was on a webinar the other day and someone was talking about passion projects. Do we have spaces where we have created and cultivated and nurtured the sharing of those passions, right? So the power of authenticity. Well, let's go ahead and ask you another big question. So what does relevant mean within the context of our learning today? Let's go ahead and take a look at that. So the power of relevancy. And let me just go ahead and tell you about what being relevant is about, right? Being relevant is looking at our experiences, looking at our learning, and thinking about how can I take this learning, right, and bridge this and use that as a bridge to connect with someone else. So just as I see value in the learning, right, because I see value in the learning, I want someone else to see value in the learning. How can they see value in the learning with specific regard to whatever their conditions are in life and whatever their background is in life, right? So the power of relevancy, building bridges is a part of learning, right? All right. I could stay there a long time, but we have other information that we want to go ahead and share with you today. So big question. The next one, what does rigorous mean within the context of our learning, right? So we've made it to rigorous, right? Let's go ahead and take a look at rigorous, the power of rigor. Now, I know right now, and when I was working on this, I said, Vernon, this could be a little contentious. There could be some folks that might say that, hey, Vernon, rigorous means this, rigorous means that. I have all of these different ways in which I think about rigor, right? So let's go ahead and let's talk about this. When we're talking about being rigorous and what rigor is, I simply think about rigor in this way. Whatever it is that I'm deeply involved in terms of the learning and being engaged, does it challenge my thinking? Does it cause me to reflect on my thinking and to challenge my thinking? And even beyond that, does it cause me to challenge the thinking of others, right? All right, so let's go ahead and let's go on to the next point. So here is the next big question. What does reflective mean, right? So we've made it to reflective. Succinctly stated, and I'm just going to go ahead and tell you this, folks, that anytime you want to have authentic growth in your life, I contend vehemently that you cannot have authentic growth without being a person that reflects. Being a person of reflection is key. We're always reflecting, we're always thinking, we're always going back, we're always looking at the different perspectives and from different angles, right? The power of reflectivity. All right, so refined. So we've made it to refined, right? Let's go ahead and let's see what refined looks like. Let me go ahead and look over at the chat. Looks like we're doing okay with the chat there. All right, refined. So the power of refinement. Now, it says there, of course, we've talked about being real, relevant, rigorous, and reflective. Those are important parts of instruction and leadership. They have their place. I'm not saying that they don't. But let me go ahead and share this with you, ladies and gentlemen. Refinement is key, because what does refinement mean? Refinement means that we're always looking for ways to be better, to improve, to innovate, to come up with new ways, new ideas, new approaches, to really even create spaces where people are able to come to new conclusions. dare I use the word, epiphanies, right? So the power of refinement, we're always looking to see and to ask ourselves, what could we change that could be the next level? What could we change that could be the next thing to take us to where we want to go to, right? So, big thought here for you. Positions and titles yield the ordinary or compliance. Influence is what drives people to do the extraordinary. Now, I will go ahead and share with you all that over the years, I've obviously worked with and worked for people that had a lot of different position titles. They had a lot of different authority, they had a lot of different influences, right? And I will tell you that obviously we respect authority, we respect titles, we respect those things, right? But I will tell you also, too, at the same time, and I would be remiss if I didn't, that influence, regardless of title, influence is the thing that drives us to go ahead and do the extraordinary when others have influence with us, right? How many times have you done something for someone and you did it just because of who that person was and what they meant to you, regardless of what their title was, right? So as we're going through this, I want you to ask yourself, what type of influence have I had as a part of instruction with my students? What type of influence have I had if I'm a leader with those that I lead? What type of influence have I had with my peers in a lateral sense, right? So again, let's look at that quote. Positions and titles yield the ordinary or compliance. Influence is what drives people to do the extraordinary. Okay? All right. So the big three questions, I want to go ahead and look at three big questions for you and just kind of look at this. Your credibility and experience are essential to establishing trust. The big three, right? Your credibility and experience. The next thing, an accurate assessment demonstrates your understanding and competence. Now, remember, we have to have understanding and we have to have competence. We have to be able to demonstrate competence. And then as well, obviously too, your ability to connect with value and shine the light on others. Let me go ahead and tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that if you aspire to go to different levels in leadership and to be able to have the benefit and pleasure of leading others, one of the biggest things you can think about is how you can not shine the light on yourself, but how you can shine the light on others. And this is definitely a part of the 5 R's when it comes to instruction. How are we shining the light on students and giving them opportunities to not only be successful, but to be recognized for their successes, right? Okay, so let's go a little bit deeper on this. So it says, be real, be authentic, EQ, emotional intelligence. How many of you know that emotional intelligence is really understanding where someone else is in real time? Emotional intelligence, that is absolutely important when it comes to the instructional environment, right? How many of you know that it's not just curriculum, but it's connection? Let me say that one more time. It's not just curriculum, but it's also the connection, understanding where we all are in the learning process as humans. So be competent, be accurate, of course, emotional intelligence there as well. Be caring, that caring aspect, the human aspect. And of course, we have all lived through this experience that has caused us to have to shift to thinking about learning experiences in the virtual realm versus maybe where we were before in the physical realm. But how many of you know that that connection piece and showing the caring and compassion, that's just as important as anything else that we might share? Okay. So you might be saying, you know what, hey, Vernon, now what, right? So let me just think about something or really just kind of share with you a few things. And before I do that, let me check the chat there. Looks like we're doing good on the chat. Now what, right? So a few different things, right? So as you're going through this, shared a lot of information with you here today. You're thinking about a lot of different things, right? So one of the things to think about is, where are you with this process, right? Have you thought about the 5 R's? Have you thought about the different steps? Have you done a self-assessment, right? How many of you know that introspection is absolutely critical? It's important to making sure that we're able to go ahead and make the progress that we need to make. But two, at the same time, are we just looking at our involvement? Absolutely not. We're looking at the involvement of others. And when we're looking at the involvement of others, that can be someone that is in the office next to us. That can be someone, if we're in a school, that is on the same grade level team that teaches the same subject. That can be someone that is next to us in a PLC meeting. That can be someone that maybe works at another school. It could be a colleague that maybe even works in a different district, a different region, a different state, and even different part of the country, a different part of the world. So how do we understand the learning? And then after that, how do I engage others in dialogue and share the learning with them? Because guess what? If I have the knowledge and I have the learning, but I don't share it with someone else in a way that has value in their lives, then guess what? The knowledge just sits there. So it's like a tool. The tool is waiting to be used. The tool has value, but it's the application, right? That's why we have those things called apps, short for applications. So what is the application of the information? As part of my next steps, how do I engage others and get them to thinking about it as well? So the next step, what does this look like in my district, right? What does this look like at my campus? What does it look like in my district? Are there change agents at your school? Change agents that are friends of yours, change agents within your grade level, within the subjects that you teach? Are there change agents in your district? Your leader, those in leadership that you work with or work for, are they change agents? How can you bring them into this dialogue about talking about, hey, here are some things that are on my mind, learn them in the 5 R's and want to go ahead and share them with you. And if you're wondering, Vernon, how do I engage people, right? How do I engage people with this information? You can simply say this, hey, can I share something with you? And just ask them that question. They'll say, sure. And you'll say, I was in a webinar the other day, the 5 R's. You can go on to q.org/Microsoft and see how to watch that webinar again and say, I got a lot of value out of that. I'd like to share with you some of the things that I learned. Could I share that with you? Very simple, easy to ask question. And when you do that, really share from your heart, right? You're sharing from your mind, but share from your heart too, because we already talked about the power of being real and authenticity, right? Authenticity is a huge thing. So what role do I play in this? And what's been really interesting as I have shared this in different spaces, in different places, has been that as attendees have gone through this process of thinking collaboratively with me, they have, in terms of thinking about what does it look like in their role, they've gone back and not only examined this specific piece, they have also looked at what are all of the other things that I'm doing that maybe I've not looked at before. So this is a really great place, if you haven't already, to really stop and think about how can this play into the work that I'm doing now, and then also too, for the upcoming school year, how can it play a part in that? So let me go ahead and look at the chat. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So what's my potential impact as a leader, right? So every person that has influence is a leader. That means you are a leader. If you have influence, you're a leader. Okay. And so when you think about what is my impact as a leader, I really want you to think about this. If I share this information with someone else and it caused them to go ahead and reflect on and look at the things that they were doing and to make a change, then guess what's happened? I've just caused someone to elevate and to make better their instruction through the lens of what? The lens of the 5 R's. So the secret ingredient, the bottom line, right? Let's take a look at this. So soul is the essence, right? It's the essence of how we tell our story. So as we're going through this, I want to ask you this question. As you take this learning and you go back to your spaces, you go back to your friends, your family, your professional colleagues, I want to go ahead and ask you this question. How are you telling your story? Again, through the lens of the 5 R's. How are you telling that story? Our soul is a part of our identity as human beings. And the reason why I share this is that when you are doing instruction and you're really in that power zone, how many of you know that when you're in that power zone with instruction, you are just in your place where you feel like you're really connecting? That is a part of honoring our identity as human beings. And that is one of the things that causes us to be very engaging to others. We've talked about the 3 high impact levers. Of course, the highest impact lever, and really, I want to share this with you, that influence, again, is the thing that really, really, really drives people to do the extraordinary. Now, it doesn't mean that the other parts, the other things that we have talked about today are not of value. They absolutely are. But guess what? Guess what is really of value? What's really of value is influence. So, have we fostered and cultivated influence in our lives and in our leadership every day? So, be real, the power of authenticity, be competent. You don't have to know everything, but what can I do and what can I show that demonstrates my competence, again, as a part of instruction? So that when we're having these dialogues with students and also too with adults, they understand that we have some grasp of what's being discussed and what's being talked about. Being competent, being caring, compassion is always important. Understanding what real EQ is, emotional intelligence, that's important. Let me go ahead and share with you all also too. Go ahead and taking a look at the time here. The Global EdTech Academy, connect, learn, and share there with Microsoft and Q. Make sure, if you haven't already, that you check out the sessions. A lot of great individuals that I am absolutely honored and privileged to be a part of and to work with that are there. Absolutely phenomenal. Next. Thank you, guys. It has been my absolute pleasure and privilege to be with you. Of course, I'm on Twitter at The Wright Leader. Be sure to check out all of the great sessions at q.org/Microsoft. Of course, you see the hashtags that are down below, Microsoft EDU, GETA, Global EdTech Academy, and then also too, we are Q. So with that being said, let me go ahead and see, do we have any questions in the chat? Do you guys have any questions for me? Do you guys have any questions? Oh, thank you so much, Don. I appreciate you. Don. It is a pleasure, my friend, to be able to go ahead and share with you and always talk to you and share and exchange ideas. Thank you so much. Thank you, Shelley. Thank you, Karen. I appreciate that. Thank you guys so much. Thank you. I see Don Epps there. Any other? Yeah. Hey, Don. Good to see you, my man. Good to see you. Any other questions? How do we use cultural relevance with EQ? Thank you, Sheila. Thank you so much, Terry. Thank you. Right? Absolutely, Linda. Let me go ahead and get to the question that my friend has there with how do we use cultural relevance with EQ? You know, as I have shared about cultural relevance before in the past, I've always asked for people to go ahead and go into that thinking or into that dialogue or discussion with these things in mind. Number one, do I understand my background and where I'm coming from, right? And also, too, as well, do I understand the other person that I'm trying to engage in this dialogue with? Okay, let me check a quick message here real quick. Okay, all right. So with that, when we're talking about cultural relevance, how are we connecting and understanding each other's backgrounds? Because watch this. as I'm trying to understand your background, what do I need to understand? I need to understand my background, but I will tell you one of the secrets, and I will give you guys a secret to really engaging in these types of conversations with EQ, because EQ, pardon me, is really understanding where is someone in real time with what they are, what they're doing rather, and where they're coming from, right? And so in order to go ahead and understand that, guess what they have to know? They have to know that I'm coming from a place that's genuine. So if I'm talking to my friend Don, who is on the call, and I'm saying, hey, Don, I want to talk to you about cultural relevance, right? And I want to talk to you about culturally relevant instruction. The first thing I need for Don to know is not how much do I know about it, or how much do I think I know, or how many different articles I've read, or how much that I have had experience with. The first thing I need for Don to know is, Don, you need to know that when I engage in this dialogue with you, I'm coming from a place that's genuine and a place that is authentic. And once Don knows that, guess what can happen? Don can let his walls down. And once Don lets his walls down and I share with Don, let's say that maybe I said something and I said something that was maybe said slightly a different way than maybe what Don expected. Then Don, because he knows that I'm coming from a place that's genuine, guess what Don is able to do? What Don is able to do is Don is able to say, you know what? Vernon's being authentic. Vernon's coming from a great place in his heart. I don't take offense to that. Vernon just made a mistake. I don't think that that's really who Vernon is as a, is as a person. And so when we get involved in these spaces and we talk about these things, one of the things that I often wonder about is this, because some of these discussions, let's just be very honest, folks, some of these discussions in the past maybe have been a little heated. Maybe they've had a little bit of tension. And I've been in some of those situations where I've been an observer of those dialogues. I've been a witness to those dialogues. And I have asked individuals involved in that, hey, before we get a little too heated here, do you believe that this other person is coming from a place that's genuine? And if I believe that this other person is coming from a place that's genuine, we can have dialogue, and we can have constructive dialogue that not only honors what I'm thinking, it honors what the other person is thinking. And then guess what happens? If what I am doing and what I'm listening to from the other person, if I'm honoring that and they're honoring what I'm saying, we can come together and try to honor a collaborative approach. That's synergy. Okay. All right. Share some specific examples you have, best practices you have used in the classroom. I will go ahead and tell you this. In terms of being real and being relevant, one of the things that I have always asked students to do is to think about what are examples in their lives, right? And so one of the things that I used to do, I was a math teacher when I was in the classroom, is I would just talk to them about, hey, have you ever noticed where math is in all of these different spaces in your life? Have you noticed that? Those of you that are fans too, and I'm going to talk about the rigorous part, right? In terms of challenging thinking about our own thinking, challenging the thinking of others. If you are a fan of Avid strategies, Socratic seminar, philosophical chairs, but look at those instances, right? Those instances are not just where the teacher is challenging the thinking of students. Students in a respectful way are doing what? They're engaging in dialogue, which we know when we create those spaces and allow them to do that, what is that? That's prompting and setting the stage for higher levels of cognition, but we're allowing them to use the language to challenge each other's thinking, the appropriate academic vocabulary. So those are just a few things that I've done before in the past. And also too, let me go ahead and say this. And I mentioned this earlier about shining the light on students and giving students the opportunity to be successful and to experience what a win is like. When is the last time, and we talk a lot about student voice and student choice, right? When is the last time that we provided the opportunity for students to share their learning with the class? And then we engage in this dialogue. So really, it's not anymore of teacher and student. It's human to human as we're sharing, right? So hopefully that helps. A few examples there. Let me look at the chat here. All right. Okay. All right. Learning experience. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you about that. Yes, challenging the learners, because guess what? Anyone can sit down and they can look at whatever the learning is and say, okay, you know what? My thoughts about the learning are this. My thoughts about the learning are that. My thoughts about the learning are this. But have we really caused them to challenge their own thinking, but even to challenge the thinking of others? Okay, let's see. Taking a college course is challenging me in a theoretical way. I think this challenges thinking. I want to use this more when I talk. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm honored. I'm honored by that. One of the things that I've shared with people over the years is this: when you would like to share something that maybe challenges their thinking, is to simply ask them this question: can I share something with you? So if I'm having a conversation with my friend Don, who is here on the call, I just ask Don, hey, Don, can I share something with you? And Don says, yeah, sure, Vernon, what is it? And I say, Don, I know that you see it from this perspective. Don, when I'm looking at it, I see it from this other perspective. And then I ask Don this question: Don, why do you think our perspectives are different with this? Now, rather than me telling Don or saying to Don, I think your perspective is wrong and mine is right, which that's not going to get anyone anywhere, right, in terms of being collaborative, what I do is I honor Don. I honor his thought process. I share with Don what my thought process is. And then I ask Don, hey, why do you think there are differences in our thinking? So in other words, what am I doing in a very innocuous, inviting way? I'm inviting Don to become part of the dialogue. And not only that, guess what I'm doing? And if you haven't written this down, or if you're going to write anything down from this session, make sure you catch this. I invite Don to be my thought partner. So let me go ahead and ask you this. When is the last time that you've invited individuals to be your thought partner? And so when you invite them to be your thought partner, you're looking at the conversation, the dialogue, through what? The lens of the 5 R's. The lens of the 5 R's. So you see, the lens of the 5 R's is, guess what? It's not a destination, it's a catalyst. And I want you guys to understand that. The 5 R's is not a destination, it's a catalyst to help further engage individuals in what we're trying to get to and the solution we're trying to solve, right? All right. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you. Yes, I certainly hope and wish that people could approach that that way more as well. I've seen that over the years. And, one of the things, even in addition to the slides that I shared with you all tonight, that is just absolutely in my heart to do, and it's the value part, right? And that value part is, how can I give you tips, strategies, and ways to think about instruction, to think about the dialogue between us as adults in this profession called education, between us as adults and families and community members and all of the other stakeholders, that allows you to do what? It allows you to honor your perspectives, share your perspectives in a way that's collaborative, and guess what? Challenge others in a respectful way about their thinking, and then do what? Cause everybody to come together and say, you know what? Maybe Don's way is a little bit different than my way. Let's stop and wonder if Don's way and my way work together, or if there's some synergy between the two. Maybe we come up with a resultant that, had Don and I not engaged in dialogue, guess what? Neither Don nor I would have come up with. So hopefully these are ways in which you can take them back to your personal lives, and professional lives, and you can use them, right? Just simply, I walk up to Don and say, hey, Don, I'd like to share something with you. Can I share something with you that I'm really passionate about? And what is Don going to say? Well, Don's going to say, yeah, sure, Vernon, what is it, right? And I will tell you that over the years, when I've used that approach and I've asked someone that and say, hey, can I share something with you? I want to share something with you that I'm very passionate about that's near and dear to my heart. Can I share that with you? I have yet to have anyone say to me, I'm really offended. I have yet to have anyone say to me, no, right? Because your approach is inviting someone into that. And I will share with you too that something that a leader shared with me many, many years ago. I was in a professional development for leaders, and he asked all of us this question. There were about 100 leaders in this professional development session, and he asked us this. He said, you know, in your dialogues and conversations with people, have you been talking at people or with people? And so how can we talk with people and have these vibrant dialogues, right? Let me check the chat there. Okay, it looks like we're doing okay. Any questions? Any questions? Any more thoughts than anyone would have? Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm going through the list, looking at all of the folks that are here. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I am just absolutely honored. I am absolutely privileged to be with you guys. I'm telling you right now that Q and Microsoft have come together to put together something that is absolutely phenomenal, and it is changing the professional development landscape and space. And so I encourage you to look at, go to q.org/Microsoft, look at the schedule, look at the other speakers, plug into those sessions, and really just build your capacity and take in the learning. And guess what? The price is free. It is free. It is free. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here.